There is a kind of tired that has nothing to do with what you have done today, and everything to do with what you have been rehearsing. The storms that did not arrive, the conversations that never happened, the damage you have been quietly bracing for, hour after hour, in the place behind your chest, where the breath has been stopping short all day, just above where it needed to go. Whatever you were bracing for, it has no address here. The forest does not know what you were preparing for, and it does not need to. Let the weight of your body press down into what is holding you, not pushed, not arranged, just the full, unargued mass of you, given over to gravity, a hand releasing what it held, not dropped, simply opened, because there was nothing left that required a fist. Welcome to the deep forest. Tonight we will walk together with Milo, a small field mouse who has been building very carefully against a rain that has not yet come. The oak root had been his home for 3 seasons, and Milo knew every inch of its curved interior. The packed earth floor, the place where the root dipped lowest and held the cold longest, the cedar grain of the old wood that had no reason to smell warm and did anyway. He was outside now, in the blue hour before the insects stopped. The notch in his left ear, worn smooth from years of pressing flat, against the ground to listen for things moving beneath the surface, caught the air from the east and held it. There had been a sound earlier, the kind of sound a storm makes before it commits to anything. Low, uncertain, the sort that arrives once and does not repeat. Milo had heard it once, and then he had not heard it again. And that was the problem. His eyes moved to the sky, dark and unblinking, scanning the canopy for the particular heaviness that comes before rain bends the highest branches. The canopy gave nothing back. He picked up a leaf. It was broad and still pliable, a late season thing, the colour of creek water over sandstone. He carried it in his mouth up the curved side of the root, to the place where the hollow opened, where the existing thatch of leaves and pine needles and one careful strip of birch bark formed what was almost a roof. Almost. The last of the evening light caught the amber along his back, as he pressed the leaf flat against the edge, smoothing outward with both forepaws until the seam disappeared. He went back for another. The leaves were not all the same, and Milo sorted them as if the difference mattered, because to him, at this hour, it did. The broad ones went along the outer edge, where the angle was steepest. The narrow ones, the ones with the stiff central rib that resisted lying flat, went in the middle, where overlap could compensate for what a single layer could not do alone. He had worked this out over the first hour. He was now in the third. He descended the root again, his paws reading the bark without looking. Grip and release, grip and release. Each knot and furrow memorized through repetition rather than intention. At the base, the leaf pile he had gathered before dusk was smaller than he remembered. He sorted through it without lifting his eyes from the task, turning each leaf by its stem, pressing it against the inside of his wrist to test for brittleness. A dry leaf would crack under the first rain. A cracked roof was no roof at all. He set 3 aside. He carried 2 back up. The air had not changed. This was the thing he kept returning to between trips, in the half-second pauses, when both forepaws were occupied, and his mind was briefly without a task to grip. The air smelled of dry bark and distant soil and nothing else. No ozone. None of that specific cold that moves ahead of water. He pressed his nose to the wind once, and then again. Bark, soil, the mineral cold from the north. In each layer, only the absence of what he was looking for. The wind returned nothing useful. He went back up with the leaves. By the 4th hour, the roof had a shape. He could see it now from below, crouching at the base of the root and tilting his head back until the whole structure filled his vision. The broad leaves formed a clean slope on the eastern face, the direction the sound had come from. The narrow ones in the center overlapped by precisely the width of his smallest claw. The birch bark strip along the northern edge had not shifted. It was he thought. Nearly right. The word nearly dropped into him, like a stone into still water. The ripples were still moving outward when his forepaws had already reached for another leaf, his body having made the decision, before the thought arrived to approve it. The night deepened around him, without ceremony. The insects had stopped some time ago, and he had not noticed the moment they stopped. Only the quality of the silence that replaced them, denser, fuller, pressing in from all sides with a weight that the sound of wings had been holding back without his knowing it. Somewhere in the middle distance, a branch adjusted itself against another branch, wood on wood, a single dry syllable, then nothing. Milo's back legs ached in the specific way that comes not from a single strain, but from the same small motion repeated, past the point where the muscle expected to stop. Each descent down the route, each ascent, each press and smooth and step back to assess. The motion had worn a groove into him now, and he moved inside it without deciding to, his body following the groove, because the groove was there, and stopping it would require a different kind of effort than continuing it. He reached the base of the root again. The leaf pile held only the brittle ones. He sorted through them anyway, turning, pressing, setting aside. His back legs sent their quiet report. He noted it. He reached for another leaf. His paws stopped, not because he told them to. They had simply arrived at a place past which moving felt identical to not moving. He stood at the base of the root, with a brittle leaf in both forepaws, and the leaf flexed once under the pressure, and the sky above the canopy was the same sky it had been for 4 hours, and the roof above him held 37 leaves, and 1 strip of birch bark, and was either finished or as close to finished as the night was going to allow. He sat down. The brittle leaf went with him, splitting along its central rib as his weight settled onto it, quietly, without drama, and Milo remained where he was, forepaws loose in his lap, the cracked leaf beneath him, holding his weight in 2 pieces. He sat there for a moment that had no particular length. Then he got up. Not because there was a reason, more the absence of a reason not to. He climbed back up. The roof was there when he arrived at the top. The same roof it had been an hour ago. 2 hours ago. The full night ago. He pressed both forepaws flat against the uppermost layer of leaves, feeling the slight give of them, the whole structure breathing fractionally under his weight without shifting. It was finished. Not with resolution, more the arrival at a point, past which adding anything more would be the same as adding nothing at all. He added another leaf. It took him a moment to understand what he had done. He had pressed it into the northeastern corner, where the overlap was already 3 layers deep, where rain could not have entered even if it had tried. His paws had done it without asking. He smoothed the edge. He pressed the stem flat. He stepped back. The new leaf disappeared into the existing layers, as if it had always been there, changing nothing, asking for nothing in return, for having been placed. He went back down. The leaf pile at the base held only the brittle ones, the ones sorted out hours ago, because they would crack. He had come back down for them anyway. He picked one up, turned it over in his forepaws, pressed it against his wrist. It gave a sound so small. It was less a crack than a suggestion of one, a hairline drawn through the silence. He set it down. He picked it up again. Behind his eyes, a heaviness arrived that the leaf in his forepaws could not account for. He set the leaf down. He did not pick it up again. His back legs had reached the end of what they were willing to negotiate. The ground was there. He stopped moving. The sky above the canopy had not changed. The roof above that had not changed. And the rain, as it had been all night, was nowhere. He did not get up. this was not a choice so much as a reckoning. The body's quiet count of what it had left and what it did not. His back legs had said what they needed to say, and the rest of him had heard it, and there was nothing in Milo left to disagree. The brittle leaf beneath him had split along its rib, but held his weight in 2 pieces, and he sat in the cradle of it, with his forepaws still loosely curled, hands that had been holding something all night and had only just remembered they could stop. The sky was the same sky it had been all night. Dry, vast, holding its own counsel. He looked at the roof. It sloped cleanly from the high eastern edge down to the northern birch strip, and the leaves along the centre overlapped by precisely the width of his smallest claw. And there was a new leaf in the northeastern corner that had changed nothing, and he had put it there anyway. And the roof did not care about any of this. It was. That was all. The roof did not know the word finished. It only knew whether it held or it did not. Tonight, in the dry dark, it held. Milo moved to the hollow entrance and went inside. The air in the hollow was different from the air outside, warmer by several degrees. Trapped and changed by the packed earth walls, and the finished roof above, carrying the cedar that lived in the grain of the old rootwood. It pressed across his shoulders as he lowered himself to the floor, across the back of his neck, down through the small of his back, where the ache had lived all night, pooling there without being asked, the cedar warmth filling the lowest place and staying, because that is what warmth does when it is finally given room. His eyes closed, not with effort, not with surrender. There was nothing left that required them open. The roof held. The rain did not come. Milo's eyes were already closed. That cedar warmth did not leave when the story did. It is in the wood grain of the oldest things, in the dense, unhurried air of a space that has been holding heat since before you arrived, and will hold it long after you stop needing it to. The hollow does not end at the edge of the fable. The hollow is wherever the body is held, without being asked to perform. The roof above you has been holding all night. You did not build it. It was already there when you arrived, and it will be there when you leave. And between those two moments, it asks nothing of you at all. The forest exhales now, and the body, because it has been waiting for permission, exhales with it, all the way to the bottom, all the way out until there is nothing left to release. And the body knows, in its oldest and least complicated part, that it is safe to be still. The quiet above you has weight to it, not the weight of something pressing down, but the weight of something that has been here long enough to know it does not need to move. That cedar warmth has moved across the tops of your shoulders now, pressing down without weight, asking nothing of the muscles beneath it. It is the same air that filled the hollow, unchanged, unhurried, requiring nothing in return for having come. One fibre releasing before the next, mirroring the roof above, which exhaled its last tension. The moment the final leaf was pressed flat, and there was nothing left to add. The last fibre releases. The structure is complete. There is no storm coming into this room tonight. Still, warm, the roof holds. You do not have to sleep. You only have to rest here, inside the hollow, inside the cedar dark, where the work is finished and the sky outside is dry, and the only thing left to do is nothing at all. Still, warm, the roof holds. The packed earth of the hollow floor has already found the soles of the feet, cool and dense, pressing back against the arches with the specific resistance of ground that has not shifted in 100 years, that has no intention of shifting now. The toes, which have been reaching without knowing it, find the floor there and stop reaching. Each one releasing in turn. The smallest first, then the next, spreading flat against the cool, without being asked. Allow the nervous system to deactivate from the ground up, echoing the root system of the old oak, settling inward when the soil no longer needs to be held. The cedar warmth begins its rise through the legs now, through the calves, where the muscles has logged its hours of climbing and descending, and has nothing left to prove. Through the backs of the knees, where tension pools without announcing itself, and where the warmth arrives now, like the first light through a canopy gap, not sudden, not requested, already there. The thighs neutralize, mirroring the hollow floor, releasing the last warmth of the afternoon into the dark, fibre by fibre, just as packed earth gives up the heat of a long day. Not all at once, but in the order it received it. The deepest layer last. The torso sinks. Not collapses. Sinks. The specific downward travel of a weight that has been held at half its height all day and is only now being given the full distance to fall. The spine lengthens against what is holding it, each vertebra finding the one below it, stacking and releasing, stacking and releasing, mirroring the layers of the leaf roof, as they settled into each other in the dark. The belly, which has been drawn inward since morning, receives the cedar warmth and expands on the next breath without being instructed. The leaf canopy overhead has reached the shoulders. The thing that was braced against imagined rain, the muscles across the top of each shoulder, which have been 2 inches closer to the ears than they were ever meant to be, find now there is nothing left to brace against. They do not drop so much as they are set down, just as Milo set the last leaf down. With care, in the right place. The arms follow, heavy and unhurried, neutralizing from the elbow to the wrist, to the curl of each finger, which loosens last and holds nothing. The papery silence of the finished roof has reached the face now. The forehead, which has been holding a question since sometime yesterday, finds the question has no weight left in it. The silence presses inward at the temples, soft and even, and the jaw, which has been holding something unspoken all day. Some last argument, some final revision to a plan that needed no more revising, finds there is nothing left to hold. The hinge of it releases, lower teeth parting from upper, the mouth falling open by the width of a held breath, finally let go. The tongue drops from the roof of the mouth, heavy and still, settling against the floor of it, packed earth finding its own level, dense and cool and done with moving. And the eyes, which have been scanning the sky all night for a storm that did not come, soften now behind their closed lids. The muscles around them unknotting, from the outside inward, until there is only dark. The specific dark inside the hollow, where the roof holds, and the rain does not come, and there is nothing above you but cedar warmth and layered leaves, and the silence of a sky that has nothing left to withhold, dry and vast, and entirely without demand. The roof holds. The night is dry. There is nothing left to build. The deep forest holds you now, as it has always held those who were too tired to hold themselves. Milo sleeps beneath his finished roof, and the rain he feared never came, and the sky above the canopy is wide and dry, and full of stars that have been turning, unhurried, long before the worrying began. Rest here as long as you need. The forest is still. The hollow, cedar dark. The roof holds. Nothing left to build. Milo sleeps. Forepaws loose. The sky dry and vast and asking nothing. The leaves still. The night holding. And you. Already there. Already still. The roof holds. Good night.